We are going to look at some paintings here. Paintings. It's all stuff that I've done. Trainwreck Productions brings you number 1, Jim Miller's paintings. There will be some more. In the first one, I believe they're all my own. And when we go back into 2 and 3, there may be 2 paintings that someone else did, but I included them for reasons that I'll speak about, okay? And we go into this one here. Is a totally non-objective painting. What I mean by non-objective, I mean it does not represent anything. It does not try to represent anything from the visual world. It simply uses the elements of design, color, form, texture, the various things that a person doing visual art might want to use. You just put them together in a way that you're not trying to picture anything. Jackson Pollock used to talk about the difference between painting and picturing. Now, this is picturing. I'm doing a picture of someone. Three different times. I call this the 3 graces. And this is picturing. It is not just painting. It is painting, but it is also picturing. Now, here is a image where I'm picturing myself. I was at a wedding one time with me, a painting. This is a photograph of me, and I made a painting from the photograph. It is somewhat abstract, but it is representational in a somewhat sense. Now this brings up a chapter in my life. This is a sign that I painted. It introduces something I did at a big old factory where I used to live. And that's the big old factory when it was very young, when it was just made or created. This is a painting I did for Charlie West Wilson. He commissioned it. Charlie was the grandson of Charles Howard West, who was one of the 2 brothers who founded the old Westmoreland Glass Company out in Grapeville. And I did this from a black and white photo, which I put, necessary color in. When I lived there, I did this painting of it. And, it's pretty much the colors that were there at the time. This is a painting that I did of the place shortly before I moved in, probably about 1987. Once I moved in, I was looking out my studio window, and I did this one. Now, what to say about this one? You'll see a number of paintings in here that I've done without any photographic influence at all, and this is one of them. I was just looking out my studio window, drawing and painting. Now you'll see a number of other paintings that were done that very much shows the influence of photography, and this is one here. This is myself and my friend Barney just coming out the door that went out to the tracks. I called the place the Main Line Works because it was right beside the main line of the old Pennsylvania Railroad. And we had just been out on a walk, and I collected some flowers for the table, and I was, taking Barney's leash off, and we were just about to go back in. But this is what I call photo expressionism. I was doing a painting that was based on a photograph. A friend of ours, Rick Stoner, took this one. And I used the painting as the basis, but I also used my own feeling about it, which involves the, expressionism, how you change things depending on how you feel about it. Shortly before I moved out of the place, I did this one. This is another one that involves absolutely no photography at all, and it's actually unfinished. When I lived there, in the bathroom, I had a medicine cabinet, and on the medicine cabinet, I painted this image. In the area where I lived, looking out one of the windows, you could see this. This was looking over through the courtyard and toward the parking lot up above. This, again, is a painting that has no influence of photography at all. I just did this looking at the scene, drawing it out, and painting it. Now that was Gabrielle Gräfin von Bernstorff. Gabrielle was one of the people who lived at the factory. I developed this place as a living, working, exhibiting space for artists. She was one of the people, one of a good number of people who moved in and lived there and worked there and exhibited there. Gabrielle she was an architect. She was also an artist who worked in 2- and 3-dimensional work. That's painting and sculpture. When I lived there, it was a really interesting experience for me because I happened to learn something which I never suspected, how your environment will change the kind of work you do. Before I lived there, I never did this kind of stuff, you know. I was doing the kind of stuff you saw before, which is mostly representational artwork. Living in that environment totally changed me. Not only that, I had a lot of found materials, plus paint, plus these are pallets. They were about 18 by 24 inches. They were the small wooden pallets that were used to put glassware on when they come out of the oven, so to speak. It was a glass factory that I was living in. This is another one of those paintings done on a pallet. And I would find also in the factory stencils. You know, this stencil is just something I use that has nothing to do with the painting. But thank you for that. See, here's another stencil used. This is 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those pallets used, and one of those stencils used to identify it. This one is done on 2 pallets. It was done at the time of the full moon, so I called it lunar. This was a great big scum from the top of a 5-gallon bucket of yellow paint, put on there with nails, and I was obviously throwing and, you know, doing a lot of wild stuff, which I had a studio that I could do that, you know. I didn't worry about getting paint on the floor because there was paint everywhere. This is one single palette that I was painting on. You know, white, blue, black. And then I found a stencil in the packing department, which I used. And here is a strange thing that happened. I had a flash drive that became digitally corrupted. And this kind of stuff happened, you know. I did not do that. I was one time studying Japanese aesthetics, actually Zen aesthetics. They had a great respect for the accidents of nature that happened, and that's an accident of nature. Here is one of the palettes in which I am just throwing paint and enjoying myself, having a good time. That's me up on the roof. Jim Barkley, a friend, was at that time working for the local newspaper, and he stopped in and did a photo of myself, which I took and used as a basis for a painting of myself on the roof. That was in the studio where I worked. Some of my tools and a little painting on the wall. These were some visitors. Kathy Weber with Kathy McCloskey's kids standing in there in the tool room, and I, you know, took a photo of them and then worked up a painting from it. Now, these girls became the basis of a painting because I would sometimes come across what the guys in the factory had as their girly pictures. They would have times when they were working when they would have some spare time and they would have a couple of girly pictures or girly magazines which they would like to spend some time looking at to remind them that not all of life was working in a factory. And one of these magazines had these pictures of these two sisters which I used as the basis of a painting. Now here we come to Greensburg. This has nothing to do with that factory. At one time I was living in Greensburg on Harrison Avenue, and looking out the window of the house I lived in, I could see the cathedral up on Main Street, and I just looked out there doing a painting of the cathedral. And this again is one of those ones with absolutely no photography involved. I just looked out the window, drew what I was looking at, and then painted it. And maybe we've done enough at this point. Okay. I think this sums up, number one in our views of paintings that I've done. And we'll probably have one or two or, who knows how many more. So I'm going to push F11 and shut this one down and see what it's like. Bye.